And hi everyone, welcome to this live stream. I think people are going to start joining. We'll be talking a bit about, oh good grief, we'll be talking a little bit about how to deal with narcissists over Christmas and over any kind of holiday. It's the 24th of December where I am for, it's been for about 1 minute. So I know that there are going to be quite a few situations that people are going to be in over the holidays when you are going to be perhaps with a narcissistic, a toxic family member, or maybe your partner, or maybe a combination of all of this. Hopefully not too many toxic colleagues over the holidays. We know that these situations can be incredibly tough, largely because we know that these people love putting us in situations where we have a lot at stake emotionally, because when there's a lot at stake emotionally, we want things to go well. If there's a little bit of tension, and there sometimes is with family and friends, it gives them a lot of power, and they love to see people squirm and feel ill at ease, and just to make it really unpleasant for people. So if it's, let's say, the right situation, if it's easier for them to get what they want, to make things unpleasant, well, naturally they're going to be doing that, because it's just helping them get their goal, which is make people feel uncomfortable, ill at ease, and do so with less effort than they normally would. So I'd like to share with you a few tips and tricks that can work, because it might be helpful. So one of the tricks is to observe how we react normally. What I mean by that is generally we can observe, and this is basic psychology, that there's a situation where there is what we call an impulse, and the impulse triggers a response. The impulse might be someone making a rude joke. Like let's say you go with your partner to your family, your partner is on the, let's say, not feng shui spectrum, rather toxic spectrum, and they like to bring up tense topics, or they like to make jokes that don't land well. Or it might just be that you've got a family member who's rather unpleasant, and they like to inject tension in the situation. So normally what happens is we have an impulse that's toxic, and that generates a response, a knee-jerk reaction, a sort of, oh my God, what is happening? I need to do something. I need to do something to reduce the danger. Now, there are a few things to do here. The first one is to simply observe what are we used to seeing in terms of impulse. So what does the person typically do to wind us up? And what is the response that we typically give? When we observe this, such as the person typically drinks too much and acts inappropriate with others, we run the risk of hoping that this time it's going to be fine. Why would we believe it might be fine? Maybe because the person says, well, I learned my lesson and so on. But maybe they say that, they've said that the last 5 or 10 times. So as long as we're hoping it's going to be fine, it means we are afraid that there will be this impulse. We feel fear. Fear is an emotion that comes to protect us against physical threat and social rejection. So it's really important. And fear is linked to the unknown. If you knew for certain that your partner would act the same way this year as they did last year, well, what would you do? You're hoping they won't. But if you knew for sure they would, you might decide to not go to the party with them. You might decide you don't want them as a partner anymore. If you knew for sure that your parents' new, so your mother or father's new partner is going to be making you feel ill at ease, you might just decline the invitation. Just say, I do not want to be around this person. Having the hope is one of the issues that we get, because as long as we hope, we're not sure. Hope leads to fear that we might be wrong, and hope is not a proper response. So instead, I highly recommend observe what the impulse has been, observe what the response has been, and what you do is you inject a pause. You find a way to Anticipate when they do this, instead of responding, I will breathe in very deeply and I will breathe out, and I will do it 2 or 3 times, simply to reduce the fear. This is a trick because when we're afraid, we typically breathe in and we block our breath. Blocking the breath gives us the oxygen we need in order to fight, in order to run away, that's flight, to freeze, or to fawn, to try to seduce and reduce the danger, and so on. If we start breathing deeply, we're tricking our body into thinking there is no danger. If there is no danger, the brain reacts properly and the brain works properly. And quite honestly, there isn't really any danger most of the time. The main danger is the fear of what they might do. Unless the person is actually likely to pull out a knife or a machete or a gun. In that case, you've got a whole different set of problems. But if it's simply about the shame and the embarrassment, and we'll anticipate it. Assume that the average of the past events that went bad is going to happen. If you plan for the worst, if you plan for the worst, you no longer have the hope, and that means that you are reducing the uncertainty. And if they actually act the way that you think they might be acting, or you're concerned they might be acting, you can just shrug it off. Because, well, okay, you made a dirty joke. I knew you were going to do that. You can even throw in a little, that's just really predictable. It's really embarrassing. Now, something to bear in mind when it comes to this, and everything I'm saying, incidentally, is I'm offering you a framework with which to decode things. I'm not giving you advice. I'm not telling you what to do. There's a very simple reason for this, which is... let me see how to do this. Okay. Advice is only good, or only, let's say, useful, if the person has 100% of the information and has skin in the game. What I mean by this is, I don't have 100% of the information in my life. I don't have 100% of the keys in my life that I need. So to have that for you is just not going to happen. It's not possible. It's not going to work. I don't know more about your life than you do about yours. So anything I would say, you would have to say, well, sure, he's saying that, but he doesn't really know everything about me. So I'm trusting that you can pick and choose the elements that work so that you can come up with something that makes more sense. Also because you have skin in the game. If I give you advice and you get it wrong, you pay the price. This is really important. Regardless of who it is, a random person on YouTube, a lawyer, a therapist, the right people don't give advice. The people who give advice are dangerous. They're making you gamble. So if you get things wrong, you pay the price. If you get things right, it's thanks to them. So for them, it's a massive asymmetry. Always be really wary of advice. So back to this. With these situations, I'm not telling you what to do because I don't know your situation. I don't know what it is that you're dealing with, but this is simply what typically works for people to understand situations. Observe the impulse, observe the response, inject a pause, and also anticipate what is going to go wrong. And this might mean, let's say that you go and see your family with your partner's not very healthy. This might mean actually going to your family and saying, listen, I'm really embarrassed for what happened the last time, so I'm really sorry. I hope it's not going to happen again. He promised me, or she promised me, it is not going to happen again. But on the off chance it does happen again, this is what I'm going to do about it. I will ask the person to leave. I will call them out. If you anticipate with the people around you whom you love and trust, and to some extent, probably love you and hopefully trust you, it's much easier. Because they probably see what's going on, that the person is difficult. They probably see that the person's walking all over you. So if you can agree with them, how are you going to act if the worst thing happens? It reduces a lot of the tension. And it also might mean just talking one-on-one with a number of them, just going, this is a bit different if it's with a family, but going, I'd like things to work out. when this person does this, it doesn't work for me. So if they do it, then, I'll let them know I'm not happy with it. And, if they do it again, then I'll leave, which is fine. And incidentally, this is something that toxic people do also, is they will be, and this is one of the really weird things, they sometimes make demands that seem reasonable, but for unreasonable things. So you get a lot of that when politics comes up in families. People saying, I can't stand when you talk about this topic, therefore I demand you do X, Y, Z. It's, otherwise I'm going to leave. If the person is the toxic person who's got like the really dodgy ideas, then the best thing might just be to let them leave. If they're unwilling to talk about things, or if they're imposing points of view onto others, I think it's really important to assess who is imposing things and who simply is willing to withdraw, and who's making a fuss and who's not making a fuss, and who's using ad hominem attacks, so attacking the person, insulting the person, using really unpleasant words, and who is just saying, I'm sorry, I'm not comfortable. This is one of the really tough things, incidentally, and you've probably seen it with narcissists, toxic people, time and time again, is that it's really tough to make the difference between someone who's legitimately complaining about something and trying to make something better, and someone who is just trying to get attention. It's really hard to do. It's part of the whole projection thing. They accuse you of doing the things that they do, and so you think, I must be going crazy because they're accusing me of doing the thing. It can be really weird. So I think one of the best ways is to observe how people react to it, if they're trying to escalate things and if they're actually attacking people. With any of this, by the way, if you have any questions, do let me know in the comments, because I can dive into this a bit more. So, if we're observing, or if we're assessing the worst, one of the ways of dealing with it, so you need a protocol here to assess if they do something, this is what I'm going to do. So if they get drunk, and if they start flirting with someone, decide how you're going to react. And usually a good way of doing it is to start with an apology. I'm sorry, we discussed this, you promised that you would do this, you're not keeping your promise, therefore I'm leaving, as I said I would. It's really important, if you say that you will do something, to stick to it. They'll keep on pushing your boundaries and they'll be trying to call your bluff. You need to be willing to do it. You need to be willing to walk away. You need to be willing, basically, look at it this way. Be willing to limit the damage on all the people around you. If you're not doing that, you're polluting their evening and their time and so on. So if the person, you came with a person, you can ask them to leave. You can decide to leave if it's not your family. But you might also want to anticipate, if you had the certainty that they would act in the worst way, as they've done the previous times, would you even show up? Would you let them in? Would you invite them in? Why are you hoping that things are going to work out? Is it because you've got a good reason, a valid reason? Or do you actually believe that the worst is going to happen? If the worst happens, well, how would that be? And then what do you expect? If you expect things to be, let's say, only on a scale between on a scale from 0 to 10, 10 things are amazing, 0 things are catastrophic. You've got a whole zone that's terrible, you've got a zone that's a mixed bag, and then you've got a zone that's amazing. If you know that systematically you're landing down in this category, well, do you want another evening like that? Another Christmas like that? That's your choice. These choices, I know, are not easy. That's perfectly normal. But I remember situations where systematically every party would be terrible until the end. I stopped going because I didn't want to show up with this person. And any time I would have gone alone, it would have been drama. Of course, the right response is to say, well, I'm going. And, you have not been invited because your behavior was terrible. So, but of course, once we realize that, then the relationship probably is over pretty quickly. It's really important also to know what you're willing to lose, what you're willing to walk away from, and how you're going to walk away from it. So I highly recommend prepare the different scenarios in your head, prepare the protocol, how will you respond, talk with the people, And if you had bad situations before, I'd suggest just, put it on the table, be open, and just say, last year was really embarrassing. I'm so sorry for that person's behavior. I know that you're inviting us again because, you don't want to make things difficult. I can't guarantee they're not going to react. They're not going to act that way. Listen, even if they promise they won't act that way again, you don't control them. It's much better to say, I can't promise. They promised, I believe they won't act that way again, but I can't promise. So this is what I'm going to do. On the off chance they do, you can look at it as being, start here, things go okay, medium, or they don't go well. If we go down to the point where they don't go well, you can either let things get worse, stay roughly the same, or you can improve things. If we get to the point where things don't go well, this is what I'm going to do. Like, are you okay with it? It might involve calling the person out and just saying, wow, this is really embarrassing. You promised you wouldn't do this. I don't know what's happening. Or, I'm sorry, this is embarrassing. I'd prefer if you left. Of course, that might be, an explosion, the end of the situation. Maybe it's for the best. But always, 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 please always assess how dangerous it is. I don't know. It depends on the person. Please always assess that because it's your skin in the game. Please remember that. Let me know in the chat if you have any questions. I'm sort of looking between two different screens to make sure I'm not missing anything. So let me know if you have any questions. Something also to bear in mind is when you're around a person who might act in a crazy way, it probably is the wrong time to be relaxed. That probably is the wrong time to let your guard down. This would mean any behavior, any substance that makes you more vulnerable, such as alcohol or other substances, it might be the time to avoid it. Simply because if you are trying to manage a dangerous situation and you don't have your full capacities, you're not fully focused, it makes it more stressful and more difficult and more dangerous. So it might be the wrong time to do it. And also, quite often toxic people, they like getting intoxicated. It loosens things, gives them excuses to be unpleasant. So, if you just step back and don't partake in it, it's much easier to avoid getting triggered. This, by the way, is really important when we look back at this part, the impulse and the response. Getting triggered is having an automatic response. So, main thing to do, like I mentioned, reduce the risk of having the response. You insert a pause and you breathe. And then you choose. So instead of having the, automatic response, choose a response. But choose a response beforehand. Choose the response that actually leads to the outcome you want, which might just be walking away from a bad situation. It might be de-escalating, avoiding the tension, apologizing, or just not reacting sometimes. You're probably familiar with the grey stone or grey rock, when the other person is trying to wind you up and you're not getting wound up. You just don't respond. You act completely indifferent. Remember that these creatures, what they try to do is they try to extract energy from you. And a great way to do that is to press your buttons until you give them exactly what they want, which is a response. But if they're not able to extract energy from you, they get bored. Or they might try harder, but if people don't respond, it can make things quite easier. When I talk, by the way, about the expecting the worst, this would be the case, like in a video I mentioned, the person who was trying to bully their mother by, so the mother said that this is the best meal I've had, using hyperbole, and the daughter was responding saying, well, that's ridiculous, it can't be the best meal, what do you mean? So she took the hyperbole literally. If you expect the person to find ways to try to pollute the evening, or the party, or the family moment, when they do it, it's no longer a surprise. You know they're going to do something. The only surprise is, what are they going to do? But you know they're going to do something. And they're quite predictable when they do that. So, you can, if they do it to someone else, you can choose to, of course, just breathe and calm down. You can choose to stand up. You can stand up for the other person. Or just say, I'm sorry, what you're doing is not okay. It's not okay. And no, then you just end with that. It's not okay. And then move on to something else. And that's one of the tricks, by the way, of calling out the toxic behavior. Or you just look and you go, wow, that's such a negative thing to say. Just move on. And then if they go, you just said I'm negative. Like, no, I did not say you're negative. I said what you did was negative. Do you think what you did was positive? Really? It doesn't seem positive to me to start, taking hyperbole literally. That's what I did when I had to start taking hyperbole literally. When that happens with a hyperbole thing, if you ask, well, do you know what hyperbole is? You probably get the thing of course I do. Like, well, why do you take it literally then? Of course, if you call out the person, there's a risk that things escalate. So quite often the best thing to do is just breathe, calm things down, but also decide. And this is where it gets tough. It's not the same thing if it's you and your partner, one of your parents, or a sibling, or one of the siblings' partners who's toxic. It's hard. The main thing is, remember, you're allowed to leave if you want to. If you breathe, it calms everything down. And you can also view, that's one of the reframes, view the toxic people being like some kind of, upset 6-year-old. If you view them as, if there's a 6-year-old who's there, who's being really rude, nobody gets upset. They just go, oh my God, I don't know what the parents are doing, but the parents are doing a great job and it's pretty embarrassing, but that's it. If you just view them as a 6-year-old, you're reducing the energy that you have in the situations, and if you reduce the energy, then it demotivates them. So one of the main things you want to do is just be able to get rid of them. Okay. Do let me know if you have any questions. I wanted to share one other thing. I'm going to try to not take too much time. I got a rather interesting comment on one of my video. Actually, not on a video, on a poll I ran about being near narcissists, and somebody shared this. I thought I'd read it out. I think I have the okay, and otherwise you'll let me know, and then I'll remove this. So the person was saying that she had received a message in the morning. She'd been sick for a couple of days, and she got this message. And the message is, quote, "It's your situation that keeps us from being together, and me not being able to take care of you. So get upset with yourself, not me. I wish we were together so I could take care of you." So I'll read that again. "It's your situation that keeps us from being together, and me not being able to take care of you. So get upset with yourself, not me. I wish we were together so I could take care of you." I don't know the context here. We can highlight, so I'm not saying if the person's a narcissist or not, but simply here's a reading of this that might be relevant. And I think, around Christmas there's often a lot of tension. But it's interesting to see some of the dynamics, simply because it can make it easier to anticipate or to recognize when things are getting a bit weird. So when the person says it's your situation that keeps us from being together, that is saying the stuff that is preventing us from being together, here we go, is outside, inside. The bad things are outside this person. It's outside me, but it's inside you. It's your fault. If it wasn't for that, I'd be doing amazing things. So if I'm not doing amazing things, it's your fault. I don't know the context. I don't know why they're not seeing each other. If the person said, well, then there's the wording. The person might be able to say, for instance, "I wish I was able to take care of you, but because you're sick, I don't want to risk getting sick." The tone would be massively different. When the person says, it's your fault, get upset with yourself, not with me. Of course, I don't know how the previous message was, if the person was actually complaining, but it's a rather weird way of twisting it. Get upset with yourself, not with me. Generally would be, I understand that you're frustrated, but I don't think it'd be reasonable for us to see each other when you're sick. And I wish we were together so I could take care of you. There's a weird movement here between the we can't do it, but it's your fault, as opposed to it's my choice. And remember, when people are using the blame framework, that often is a sign that someone is using some symptoms or has some symptoms of toxicity. Instead of taking responsibility, just going, it wouldn't be reasonable. It's pointing fingers. I thought that was interesting. Try to observe these things when people point fingers and when people are shifting blame. Oh, and something else I wanted to share with you. Is anyone here familiar with cognitive dissonance? Does that ring a bell? Cognitive dissonance basically is what occurs when our experience of reality doesn't match with our image of ourselves. So that would be, for instance, a person saying, I'm really sporty, that's my identity, I love doing sport. And someone else points out, you say that, but you smoke cigarettes, you're overweight, and I've never seen you exercise. A normal person would say, yeah, well, okay, maybe I'm not that sporty, I'll tone it down a bit. But the cognitive dissonance kicks in when the person can't accept what it is they're hearing. I see this so many times, it's amazing. And something I discussed this at one point in the video when I can process it. Something I've noticed is it's not self-evident how to distinguish between a narcissist, between an idiot, so someone with really low IQ, and a smart person experiencing cognitive dissonance. I have the impression that, for all intents and purposes, the symptoms are exactly the same. And the symptoms of someone experiencing cognitive dissonance is they just get ultra toxic, and they act just like a narcissist. It's quite remarkable. Or just like a stupid person who's getting angry. And I was watching the other night, I don't know if I can do a video about this, but it was a debate, the Monk debates, and there were 4 people. There was Douglas Murray from the UK, there was Matt Taibbi, an American journalist, I believe, Malcolm Gladwell, who's a Canadian author, and there was an American journalist from New York Times. And Malcolm Gladwell, whom I usually like and appreciate, and the New York Times journalist, whom I didn't know anything about, spent the whole evening, the whole debate, suffering cognitive dissonance. It was as though they were incapable of listening to what the other people were saying, and they hallucinated opinions. So I want to give you a few tells of cognitive dissonance, because if you don't know what the tells are, you can easily get sucked up in debating with people. And if people are suffering cognitive dissonance, there really is no point debating with them because the brain isn't working properly. So, a few tells of cognitive dissonance. And this often happens, incidentally, when you debate with younger people who are convinced that they know a lot of stuff because, they followed a course at uni and they believe that they... And what happens, by the way, with the younger people, if you have cognitive... the Dunning-Kruger, where we have the confidence and competence, is that their competence went from 0 to 1, and their confidence shot up all the way, and they haven't yet reached an age where they realize that actually they don't know that much. So that's one of the key things with Dunning-Kruger, and the younger people when you debate with them. So there's no point debating with them if they're suffering from cognitive dissonance, because they won't listen to you. So let's just erase this. So some of the tells of cognitive dissonance, and you'll see them, they're really funny, and seriously, narcissists have these. One of the tells is they start a sentence with so. You say something and they say, so what you're really saying is, and then they don't paraphrase what you say, they say something that you never said and you never meant. So followed by a hallucination of your opinion. if you said, for example, when I took a holiday in France, I got sick. And they say, so you're saying that France is a dirty country? You never said that. You're talking about one experience. And France, well, anyway, I won't talk about France. I like France a lot. You talk about one experience, and then they hallucinate what it is that they think that you're really thinking. But you never said that. You mentioned one situation and probably didn't want to really extrapolate. So if they hallucinate what you're thinking, that's cognitive dissonance. And again, narcissists do this all the time. And you try to explain and they don't listen, they continue hallucinating. Another one is they use ad hominem attacks. And that usually goes hominem. And that usually goes hand in hand with the hallucination. It's rather funny. If you say that, it means this. If you say that you got sick in France, that means that you don't like French people. No, that would be a very bizarre thing to say. Be very strange. Or for example, if you tell a person who is drinking too much at a party, you might want to. You don't really need another drink. Oh, you just want to spoil the fun. That clearly is not the case. It's getting a bit embarrassing. You might regret it the next day. I want to avoid the situations. Obviously, we don't want to spoil the fun, but we've got a different idea of what fun is. If you're embarrassing people, or embarrassing me, or embarrassing yourself, or creating drama, or making other people uncomfortable, well, you might want to call that fun, but I don't call that fun. So they hallucinate these things. They come up with these crazy explanations. Hi, New Life. Hi, welcome. So, hallucination, ad hominem attacks, and then, of course, one of our favorite ones is the word salad. Word salad. So, you, and then just words that don't mean anything. Like, why would I think that? Really? Seriously? Is that really the case? When you observe this, again, here we're going back to there we go, impulse. The response typically might be, let me debate, let me discuss. It's much wiser to breathe and let it go. Oh, and sometimes one of the responses that works well is just to say, okay. I had something like this recently. It was really funny. I was exchanging on Twitter with someone. Let me take this example. It might be relevant, because this can also be sort of the conversations get into over Christmas that can be more or less pleasant. Got into conversation with someone. Someone made a comment about economic development and inequality, and I pointed out that when I spent time in Kenya and other developing countries, the people's main concern was not inequality. The people's main concern was improving their standard of living. And as they explained to me, so I thought, they probably care about inequality. They said, if my income doubles and the income of a millionaire doubles, the inequality increases, but I'm doing twice as well as I was doing before. So I'm okay with that. I kept going, you're okay? It's like, yeah, what do I care about, the other person? Provided my income increases, if his stagnates or increases or decreases, I don't see if there's a correlation with what's happening to me. So as long as I understand what I'm getting, I don't really care about other people. It might be because in Kenya it's a country of 80 million people, and a lot of them are really level-headed, really cool, really thoughtful. But they go, my problem right now is getting by on low means. So provided things are getting better for me, if they get better for other people, cool, I'm happy with that. So I was quoting people I'd spoken with in Kenya. He tried attacking me. So that was, in this case, the ad hominem attacks of saying, first of all, actually no, it wasn't ad hominem attacks. First of all, it was the hallucination. Like, that wasn't you. That wasn't you, so you don't know what you're talking about. I pointed out, well, it wasn't me. I'm quoting someone I spoke with. But, have you, you, American person, have you been to Kenya? Have you been outside of the US? Have you been to Africa? Have you spoken with the people whom you claim to want to represent? No, probably not, which is fine. But, you might want to speak with them and listen to them. And he then followed up with a bunch of word salad and then tried to portray me as being someone who didn't want to reduce inequality. It's like, well, first of all, my opinion doesn't matter because I don't change anything. Secondly, reducing it, okay, but you can also reduce it by dividing everybody's income by 2. That's not great. Provided the poor people are doing better, well, that's the main thing. That's what the poor people care about. I think it's the best way to help them. And then for the rest, well, do they do better if we increase or reduce inequality? It gets a bit complex. I don't have the answer for that. But the main thing is, let's focus on helping poor people do better rather than try to reduce inequality overall. And of course, when people talk about reducing inequality, I understand. They're saying, if we can reduce inequality, we're also improving the lot of the poor people, which makes, fine, provided we're improving the lot of the poor people. So it's sort of agreeing on different aspects of it, and then simply just thinking, well, what's the best way to get there? Provided we get there, I don't care. As long as the poor people are doing better, that's fine. But because I was making sense, and because he couldn't understand that someone who disagreed with him would be making sense, he started using the word salad and leading with a bunch of so statements. Again, if in a conversation you observe so, hallucinations, ad hominem attacks, word salad, you might be dealing with a narcissist. You might be dealing with somebody who certifiably is an idiot, has got low IQ, and you might be dealing with a smart person exhibiting cognitive dissonance. And this is one of the reasons why you don't want to debate with these people. If the brain isn't working properly, if they're not able to process ideas, if they're not able to listen, just like in the debate, the monk debate with Malcolm Gladwell and Douglas Murray and Mads Taibbi, that was amazing. So Gladwell is, as far as I can understand, a pretty smart person, but his cognitive dissonance was textbook cognitive dissonance. We can't understand that debate unless we understand what is happening to Gladwell. It's really remarkable, really funny. So, if this is happening over the Christmas holidays, remember, before you jump in and assume that you can have a debate or conversation, just observe the impulse, the response. Insert a pause. This is so important. Insert a pause. Don't jump in. Don't try to correct someone who doesn't want to be corrected. Don't try to correct someone who is convinced that they are right and they know everything. Because if they're convinced they're right and they know everything, well, it's to quote Harry Potter, Dumbledore said to Harry, "Remember, Harry, people forgive you more easily for being wrong than for being right." And that is so often the case. Don't waste time and energy arguing with these people. Sometimes, so if you're at the Christmas party or Christmas dinner, just breathe, shrug it off, change the topic, ignore them. And if they raise their voice, you can just look at them, just ignore them. The main thing is make sure that it doesn't impact you as much, that it doesn't, that it doesn't bother you, hurt you. One of the keys, of course, and this is also trying to, here's something else really important. Where do I do it? I will do it here. You could ask yourself what your goals are. And you will be having different goals. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Write out what your goals are, and then figure out which ones are mutually exclusive and which are the most important for you. So one goal might be to have a pleasant evening. Another goal might be to try to avoid drama. Another goal might be to, let's say, relax. Another goal might be to see family. Not all of these are necessarily working. Number 1 goal is too high on the screen? Is that better? Thank you, Steve. Okay. I think, let me just check on the other. No, it should be all right. Hopefully you can see it now. You can't see goal number 1? Okay, that's weird. So goal number 1, I'll just read it. It's to have a pleasant evening. I think I didn't write it very well. Have a pleasant evening. Or have a pleasant, here we go, Christmas. Okay. Yeah, technology. Now, you might want to assess, how do you do it? And what goals are mutually exclusive? To what extent is it possible to avoid, how about this? Avoid drama. And number 5 might be to keep peace in the relationship. I'm imagining you have a toxic partner. Okay, cool, Steve. Thanks. Imagine you have a toxic partner and you're going to family dinner and you're pretty sure there's going to be drama. If you don't go with a person, you know that you will not be able to keep peace in the relationship. There's going to be drama at home. So it might be that you've got the choice of having drama at home or having drama in the family. So you got to choose. If you know you can have drama anyway, what do you prefer? Do you prefer to bring the drama into the family, or do you prefer to protect your family from the drama? That's your choice. I can't say what the right thing to do is because I don't know your situation. But if you know that you've got the choice, make a choice. And then assess to what extent, you can discuss with the family. Sometimes telling the family is just, sometimes the thing to do here is just to say to the family, listen, it's really tough with this person. Last time they made things awkward. That's likely going to make things awkward right now again. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should bring them. If I don't bring them, there's drama. If I do bring them, there might be drama. I don't know what to do. I'm going towards this, but I'm concerned. Maybe it's the time, to open up and talk a bit about it. Or sometimes, for example, one person I know was going, or her mother remarried a highly toxic person. I thought she'd kicked him out, but apparently she took him back in. And so they're going to have Christmas together. And the children said, we don't want to be there with him. He has been making your life and our life miserable for the past years. We're not going to be there. So you can choose to be with him over Christmas. That's fine. We're not going to see you. And we're not going to see him again. We never want to see him again. And the mother, of course, said, well, you put me in a tough situation. Okay. No one is forcing you to take him back. That is the price you pay for taking back this person who's been horrible. You've been imposing him on us. We're not going to put up with it anymore. We've done it for too long. We're not doing you a favor. We don't enjoy it. So it's going to be Christmas without you until you get rid of him. That's it. Again, this is really weird because, it's the kind of thing that it's difficult to tell when someone is being reasonable and unreasonable. So usually it's about seeing the framework. Does it add up? Has the person been giving chances? Do they want things to be better? Because otherwise a toxic child might say, I dislike your partner because whatever. So it's really assessing who are we listening to and how did this go in toxicity? In this case, the daughter has been supporting the mother for years to a point where it's just ridiculous. And so she's fed up. Okay. That's not the same thing as a person who's trying to separate the parents and the children. It's really, really quite different. So if you know, for example, then bringing the person to the family, you won't be able to relax. Well, okay, you know that. So you've got a choice. You sort of have the two scenarios. Having the pleasant Christmas, will it be pleasant if there's drama? Probably not. What would it be like if there's drama at home? Probably won't be great either. Pick your poison. And what do you want to subject other people to? And what happens if it's one of your relatives who's toxic? What do you do? Well, it seems that if you go to see the family, in that case, then you won't be able to avoid the drama because the person is there. So you can either say, well, I don't want to be with this person, or you go and you know what it's going to be like, and you might want to warn people. Last time this happened, I didn't like it. If it happens again, I don't want to pick a fight. I'll just leave. I'll just get up and go. And that can be one of the easiest ways to drain the energy. I remember a very toxic person. I mentioned a few times the guy who claimed he was an architect, but never apparently never really built anything. He would show up at, so we'd have get-togethers with a bunch of friends, and he wouldn't drink alcohol, but he would smoke substances, or a substance. And every time he did that, he went from being mildly annoying to being just really unpleasant. And so what happened systematically is he'd smoke, he'd become unpleasant, and what was before a really nice party completely collapsed. And 30 minutes later, everyone was gone. And that's just the way people dealt with it. So he got very upset, but he destroyed the atmosphere, the mood, and so people left. That was their right to do so. So it might be the thing to do. But the main thing, again, main thing here, have the goals, and there we go. Plan, or see what you're concerned about, and plan the response. If the worst thing that you expect happens, know how you're going to respond, so you don't have to improvise. This is really important. And also, if you can clarify with the people around you and say, if this happens, this is what I'm going to do, it removes a lot of the uncertainty and a lot of the tension. And that's the best thing to do. If you're able to reduce the tension, if you're able to insert a pause, you're able to reduce the risk of having an automatic response. And if you reduce the risk of having an automatic response, you get more power back, and you get more control of the situation. There we go. That's what I wanted to share with you. I think I don't really have very much else. I was just thinking about this. I was supposed to be getting ready to get some sleep, as it's quite late, but I thought some people might be finding this helpful and useful. So thank you everyone for joining. I wish you a wonderful Christmas, and thank you for subscribing, for watching, for your comments, for your support. We're surprisingly close to 10,000 subscribers, which is completely crazy. And you might have seen that with that on the channel. So there are a few shorts that are taken from longer videos, and there are quite a few longer videos, like mini essays, usually between like 6-7 minutes and maybe 11-12 minutes. Thank you, Steve. And yeah, you're welcome to your life. So if you want to watch any of those, there might be content in there. I try to share things again, because I know not everyone's going to watch a lot of the old content, but that's one way there to find the ideas. And also let me know in comments and so on what you find is helpful, because I really want to be producing content that is relevant and helpful to you, and that can be applicable and easy to digest. So thank you. I think I mentioned this a few times, but being able to share some of the ideas that really helped me, it means that learning them, well, it helped me, so I'm really happy that I helped them, that I learned them, but the fact that I can share it with other people, it makes it really much more meaningful. That's honestly one of the best things that has happened. So thank you, JS. Thank you. Very Merry Christmas to you. I hope you get to take some time off. I hope that your Christmas is not being polluted by a toxic person or toxic people. I hope that you're able to enjoy these moments. They're really precious. Remember, we only get maybe 70, 80 Christmases or so, and we don't have that many left in front of us, and these are very special moments. And I think it's really nice to think of, just the spirit which is mainly around gratitude, noticing time goes by. I've been thinking a lot about this also, that part of it is knowing that we're sharing our time on Earth together, and it's really quite special. I was thinking about that strangely a lot with the World Cup, to think that we lived in the same era as Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo. I remember even Diego Maradona, I remember Zidane, I remember a lot of the greats, and it's, well, the only time in history, it's really special. Michael Jordan, and that's part of my experience here. I'm really happy to be sharing this with other people, and also being able to contribute something to others. It's really quite humbling. So thank you very much. Wish you a Merry Christmas. I'll see if I post more this year, otherwise it'll be next year. And take really good care of yourselves. Stay safe, reduce toxicity, stay positive. We'll get a lot of great things done in 2023. There's a lot of things we can do to make things better. I want to re-record, by the way, the Healing After Narcissists course that I have. I think the content is good, but I recorded it with Zoom when I didn't have a proper camera and proper microphone, so I'm not really happy with the quality, audio-visual quality, and I'd like to re-record the course. I've got a lot more ideas. There's a lot more substance I can put into it. Right now, the exercises, so in case anybody would think that's useful, then by all means get it, and then you'll be getting the upgraded version for free afterwards. Yeah, there we go. Thank you very much for joining. It's already 24th of December where I am here, so very Merry Christmas.